Hi, I'm George Wilbanks. Thanks for joining us for our leadership video series where we interview leaders in the asset and wealth management business. Today, we will be talking with Shawn Lytle, President of Delaware Investments, about the many facets of leadership in a complex, multi-product global investment firm. So Shawn, getting right to the heart of the matter, a couple of times now, you've taken on some pretty challenging leadership roles with high expectations for change and improvement at UBS in the U.S. and now with Delaware. Delaware is part of Macquarie Group. Can you talk at a general level about your decisions to tackle these types of really unusual challenges?
I don't know if they're unusual, George, but there are definitely opportunities and also challenges that come with that. I think that the asset management business is constantly evolving, just like the investment markets are evolving. As I saw in global equities for years when I was a portfolio manager. So there's a constant evolution, and I think that the key about asset management and in the roles that I've been in and in so many other colleagues across the industry is getting the balance right between maintaining that investment excellence and providing that consistency of process and performance while continuing to evolve and continuing to change and improve to meet the needs of our clients as the markets are evolving. And clearly, since the financial crisis, there's been a lot of challenge and a lot of change, and I think a real rapid evolution of our business. And so the roles that I've had over the last decade really reflect that. Right now, for Delaware Investments, I think there's a big opportunity because we actually do have a very, very long history, a very strong culture and a lot of talent, and you have that investment consistency. But now the question is how do we build on that? How do we take the business forward from here? And that I see as a great challenge and opportunity, which is you have a strong business with solid profitability, but you really have a chance to take it to the next level in terms of how it can meet clients' needs, not only here in the U.S., but also overseas.
Yeah, that's great. You know, you think about the challenges that you've tackled, core growth rates of new clients, running at, traditional investment products. If you're lucky, it's in the low single digits. Across the entire industry, there's relentless pressure on fees across pretty much almost every product set. How have you and the team really grappled with addressing these things? I mean, is there a way out of this trap?
I don't know if it's a trap, other than it is, back to your question before, a real challenge because things have structurally shifted in the industry. The first thing since the financial crisis is the structural shift towards passive management has been significant, right? But I think that's a structural shift which has happened. It's not going to continue. The pendulum is not going to continue to move all the way over where most investors, whether institutions or individuals, are just investing in passive strategies. I think there's a balance that's being achieved. You're seeing that with a lot of large, sophisticated institutional clients. And I think you're also seeing that with how financial advisors are recommending a balance of active and passive to their clients. But that structural shift, I think, has happened, and it's here to stay. The pendulum's not coming back the other way. Now, that said, at Delaware Investments, we are very, very strong believers in active management, and that's what we stand for. And so for us, in terms of how have we fought against some of those pressures on fees and on growth rates, is to really focus on higher alpha, higher value add strategies that have higher active share relative to whatever benchmarks or targets that they have. And so we've been able to, one, take market share in some areas which are consolidating, like large cap value. We've also been able to add new assets in areas that are growing, like international small cap or in emerging markets. And so that's how you get the balance right. It's one, distinguished strategies in areas that are, and I guess I would say, more commoditized mode, so higher active share, more concentrated strategies, then also moving into less efficient asset classes where the alpha opportunity is higher. And by doing that, I think we can get the balance right between what we're seeing as pressure on fees and growth with our ability to distinguish ourselves and grow faster than the marketplace.
Great. You know, you reflected on that, and during the course of your career, you've had direct oversight for PMs a number of times. As you and the rest of the Delaware organization, I guess I'm paraphrasing almost what your prior answer, but you look forward to a world of near-term political instability, long-term global monetary challenges of unprecedented magnitude, broadly leading to essentially, greater unpredictable environments with higher volatility. I mean, how do you set the tone and create a productive dialogue for your investment teams from the top in this sort of really unique and unprecedented environment?
Well, I think first and foremost it starts with our clients, right, and what their needs are. And clearly, to your points before, those needs are evolving, right? And the ability to achieve, high single-digit or low double-digit returns for their overall portfolios is challenged in this environment. So it has to start from that construct. Then you say, what are the investment strategies that we have, and are they really fit for a client's portfolio today? Whether that's in equities or in fixed income or in alternatives, how does that help them to achieve those goals? That's the next thing. And then you're talking about specific investment strategies within that, right? And how are you getting as much information from all different perspectives in the marketplace in order to build your portfolios? And so when it comes to the portfolio management, we really like to ensure that there's a very strong dialogue within the teams, kind of in a systematic way, but then beyond the teams, making sure that they're speaking to the other investment teams that we have in the Delaware and Macquarie network. One of the important and distinguishing things about Delaware Investments is we are a multi-boutique structure. So that means we have very separate and distinct investment boutiques that have clear autonomy for their investment process and their performance, right? But how we get them to share information and connect and dialogue on a regular basis is very important. And that's important not only in the equity teams, but also equities to fixed income, or also equities and fixed income and our alternative areas. And getting that systematic dialogue going on a regular basis really takes a lot of work and effort. But here at Delaware, what we're doing is trying to make sure we have those investment forums where the investors can come together on a regular basis to do that.
You've led directly to my next question, which is Macquarie acquired Delaware several years ago and pretty much left it alone. And that seems to be changing, is my perception. How will you and the senior team at Macquarie avoid the trap that so many other large banks have fallen into, disrupting the esprit de corps of a small professional service firm?
Well, I think that my answer to the last question is part of the solution, which is that if you have a strong investment culture and you have a multi-boutique structure where you have autonomous and independent and very passionate investment teams, my job as CEO of the firm is to make sure we protect those investors and let them do what they do best. Right? And by having that multi-boutique structure, I find that you not only are encouraging investment talent, but your ability to retain that talent and continue to develop it over time, I think is very strong. And so having that culture, not only here at Delaware Investments, but actually it already exists with Macquarie Asset Management overseas, with the investment teams we have there, means that is the foundation of our business. It is that passion for investing and that multi-boutique structure, which allows us to make sure that we are cultivating the best investment talent we can. Now, that being said, if that's our foundation, how are we going to build on that? How we are doing that is by going from very regional or country-specific businesses to really tie those together in a stronger way. So we want to be strong locally, but we also want to take global best practices and make sure we're taking those or exporting those around the world. So whether it's our client reporting systems, or whether it is our investment economic research, or whether it is how we take strategies from Australia or from Asia and import those here to the U.S., we're trying to create a consistent offering for clients from Macquarie Asset Management globally, which includes a lot of our Delaware investment strategies. I will make one other point, is that it goes beyond traditional investments with Macquarie infrastructure in a real assets business that is also, I think, a very important part of how we create a global offering that large, sophisticated institutions or wealth managers around the world can come to as a firm that has a very broad offering that is on both the traditional and the alternative side.
So, Shawn, against the backdrop of tremendously distortive global monetary policies, it's been very difficult for active managers to outperform, to generate alpha, and I think that's a challenge for the whole industry, not just your team. Can you give us any insights as to how you coach and lead your investors to think about the future and give them goals and objectives in this tremendously difficult market environment?
Yes. It has been a challenging market environment. I feel very fortunate at Delaware that most of our equity teams in particular have done well in this environment, but I think it is particularly challenging because you've now reached the inflection point. You have markets at an all-time high, equity markets at an all-time high, bond yields at an all-time low, and the recovery from the financial crisis has happened, right? Now where do you go? And I think the next 10 years, it is going to be a very different market environment, and one in which the investors, and given any type of mandate they have, need to think less about the benchmark and more about risk and return if they're going to be able to generate strong returns for clients and alpha relative to whatever industry standard benchmark you want to give them. But there it comes back to the point I made before about alpha and active share. I think you have to be less benchmark oriented. You have to see portfolio managers that are willing to stick to a certain style, but have that be less focused on a benchmark and more on an overall outcome they're trying to achieve for the clients. And that is what we're trying to encourage at Delaware Investments and Macquarie, encourage our investors to have some strategies that are moving out on that spectrum. Because I do believe now that the markets have recovered since the financial crisis, I do think it actually starts to become an environment where active management will get rewarded, but you will only get rewarded if it's really distinguishing itself from what just the overall market index is giving you.
I've heard you speak passionately about the importance of diversity in your organizations a number of times during our decade friendship. And this is an area important to my practice as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at the National Association of Securities Professionals, assisting other young African Americans to gain a foothold in the world of finance?
Yes. Well, let me first talk about diversity and the asset management business and how important that is. And then I'll talk about NASP and the great work that organization is doing. I've seen diversity in many different forms, male, female, minority, majority. But I gained an even bigger appreciation for diversity when I lived and worked overseas for 12 years. Because then you see how in one office sitting in London, so many different cultures coming together, making decisions on portfolios, and those people could be from Europe, they're from Asia, they're from the US, they're from the Middle East, and they're all working together, but they're bringing different perspectives to the table. And so, seeing that type of diversity and the power of that when I was overseas, as well as the diversity I see here in America and how bringing different perspectives to the table, minority, majority, male, female, is so important to have that investment debate and dialogue, which leads to better investment decisions and alpha for clients. I think it's critically important that we have that diversity in the asset management business. And while I've seen clear progress over the last 25 years in the industry, I still think that there are important programs that need to be in place within asset management companies and within the industry to further promote more females in the business, more minorities in the business, that can help to, and more, like, let's say here in the U.S., more international people in our investment teams and decisions making, same as overseas, that help to expand that investment dialogue, expand that ability to come up with different ideas or come from different angles, and I think generate better outcomes for the clients. I think also from the client perspective, they want to see that because it's more representative of who their clients are and what they're about. The second point is about National Association of Securities Professionals, which is a very important organization. It is the largest minority industry organization in the financial services. It has been around for almost 30 years now. and has made a big impact in terms of how minorities are represented in the industry, not only as employees of larger firms, but also in minority-owned firms. And so I've been serving as chair of that organization for the past year, and will be serving for another year. And the basic thrust of the organization is to ensure that minorities and minority firms are well represented in the industry and well utilized in terms of asset management, public finance, brokerage, other facets of the industry. But also, and I think most importantly for me and the legacy I want to leave in this industry, is bringing more minorities and women into the industry, giving them the opportunity to get in the door and get exposed, and then be able to succeed based upon their own talent and merits. And so that's an important thrust that NASP has, working with a lot of firms around the country.
That's great. You hit both of my questions. That's good. I think that's one of the things that I'm surprised that there aren't more CEOs and leaders that are talking about the economic importance of diversity for decision making, leading to more profitable outcomes, as opposed to just a philanthropic effort of diversity is a good thing to do, we should all be.
That's why I always start with the London piece. I always start with the London piece, because there it's not a U.S. context thing. You got to say, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, it just happens naturally.
It just happens naturally.
Yeah. Shawn, in our work together towards your appointment to the board of the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, I thought that was an important statement about these initiatives for all asset owners and their managers. Can you talk a little bit about the progress at SASB, working with your fellow board members to influence the investment industry? And how are these initiatives carried into the business at Delaware? And what does this mean to you personally?
I have been very honored and excited to be part of the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. It is an organization that, when you think about what FASB has done to financial accounting, SASB has the opportunity to do that in terms of bringing sustainability and the ways that companies monitor and measure and report sustainable ESG factors in their companies, to bring that into the 21st century and make it a standard way that companies think about their business and think about how they should be acting. It's also about how the asset owners and investors also can evaluate companies and evaluate how their investments are being made. That can be done with a very clear lens that brings in ESG factors. And so this is an organization which has been up and running for now 6 years. It has made significant progress then, putting standards in place, industry by industry, so that companies have a set structure in terms of how they will report sustainability factors for their business. And I'm very excited to be sitting on the board. Mayor Bloomberg is the chair of the board, and Mary Shapiro is the chair, is the vice chair of that board. And I think they've been driving forward with a very strong staff at SASB to put these standards in place, and now start to move forward with getting companies to adopt them, and asset owners to acknowledge it and think about investments with these factors. And I will say that, just like FASB 20, 30 years ago, and how that's evolved, I see this as really putting the cornerstones on how I think investors and asset owners will start to think and want to invest moving forward. And I think it will be on the tip of everybody's tongue in 20 years' time when they talk about SASB as an organization that sets real sustainability standards that help the overall industry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We're just at the beginning of this wave. So let me push a little harder on this question. How can you influence your peers in the industry productively to further these goals? Because I think they're so important to our children. I mean,
I think you have to put your money where your mouth is, right? And for Delaware Investments, coming in here as CEO last year, one of the first things we did was we signed the UNPRI to make sure that we are putting a stake in the ground that we clearly believe in sustainability and ESG. Now it's starting to look at our investment strategies and understanding how we can incorporate more ESG factors into our investment decisions. decisions or some ESG strategies, which is work in progress for us. And the third thing is really encouraging other investors and other asset managers to start to think about how they are taking these type of criteria and incorporating that into specific investment strategies or more generally into their investment process. Because I do believe that if you are focusing on companies that have good environmental, social, and governance standards, they do produce better results over time. I believed that when I was a portfolio manager. I firmly believe that now. And so the question is how do we incorporate that more generally into our investment approach?
Well, that's really inspiring, to say the least, let me tell you. It gives me confidence that the industry is going in the right direction. One last question is, as you get up every day, what are the things that are most important on your sort of to-do list that help you influence others around you to be just as motivated and passionate about the business?
Well, I think you have to be passionate whatever your job is and whatever industry you choose to be in. I think we're very fortunate to be in asset management because it's a great business. And while it is evolving and there's some challenges that we've talked about today, the opportunities for this industry are still strong, and I think the growth potential for this business is still very good. So when I think about when I wake up in the morning and think about how am I going to inspire others or what are the priorities I have, I think first and foremost, it's people. This is a people business. This industry is all about talent, and so I need to wake up thinking about my people and my talent and how I engage them every day, and every single other one of my employees, how they're engaging their team members, how they're engaging other people in the firm. That is what is the glue that it creates a really strong culture and a strong firm. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to have a vision, right? And so it's having a vision, having clear strategic plans, and then consistently and transparently communicating where do we stand and where are we going, right? And that is also what I ask not only of myself and the overall strategy I set for Delaware Investments, but that's what I ask my team heads and my management leaders to do, is also have that for their teams. Because I think to get people marching in the same direction and for people to really believe in what we're trying to accomplish is critical if we're going to be successful. And then the third thing I just say is that it's about balance. It's about, I never like to say work-life balance. I like to say life balance, because we all spend so much time at work. That is part of life, right? But as I always say to my son, I always want to have him think about working hard, but also playing harder. Work hard at school, work hard at your job, but also make sure that you're then engaging with your friends, your family, your colleagues at work outside of the office, because that's what life's about. And I want to make sure that people know at Delaware Investments and at Macquarie that we want people to have that rich, multifaceted life, and that work is an extension of that and can be part of that.
Well, that's great. Balance is such a critical thing. Shawn, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate your investment here.
George, thank you very much for having this conversation today.